the government is saying this is the most significant reform to Australia's foreign investment rules since they were established back in 1975, introducing new rules today, strict controls on very important infrastructure to make sure that it is not being used for nefarious purposes. These are some of the changes that the Treasurer will be outlining: a new national security test with all sensitive purchases to be reviewed. Previously, there was a loophole that if a business was worth under $275 million, it wasn't necessarily scrutinised. There's also new powers to prevent and even overturn sales if that investment becomes risky down the track. And finally, these new investigative powers to make sure any successful overseas buyer is complying with the conditions. The caveat on that is it's not going to be retrospective overturning of some of these things like the Port of Darwin. You can't go back and overturn that sale. The government at pains this morning to point out, though, that they are not targeting any one country with these laws.
No, they're country agnostic, and that's important because the threat can come from a number of actors, and we need to make sure that we can deal with that threat. So when you're saving your data to the cloud at the moment, that ultimately ends up in a server somewhere in a physical location. If the wrong people own that premise, then that information could be exploited.
So Treaty, the government, meanwhile, leaving open the option of removing JobKeeper payments early. It wouldn't be for everyone, but if a business has bounced back, they're saying possibly, or at least the door's open on this, you don't need this payment anymore.
Well, Tom, there's been a lot of scrutiny over what will happen after September, that deadline for when the JobKeeper payment is due to cut out. But what's going to happen prior to that date? There's now talk about possibly phasing it out or changing the payments to businesses if they've bounced back in terms of those revenue falls, which was part of the JobKeeper eligibility in the first place. The Finance Minister, Mathias Cormann, asked about this morning, pointing to the review that's due to take place this month and be revealed next month. He's keeping the door open, I should say.
I'm not going to speculate about decisions that may or may not be made, subject to the recommendations out of the Treasury review, which we're yet to receive, subject to reviewing.
You don't rule it out that businesses...
I'm not going to start playing a rule-in, rule-out game. What I'm saying to you is we're 2 months into a 6-month programme, and as we've said right from the outset, there's a review halfway through.
It's the 23rd of July, Tom, that's shaping up as the date that the government will announce what's happened as a part of this JobKeeper review and whether they will taper off these payments.